Experience it on FS1.
Well, the first Fox UFC Fight Night of 2016 is just a day away, but first, with New Jersey as its backdrop just across the Hudson River from the Big Apple, a host of the UFC's best hit the scale to make their bouts official. The final fighter to weigh in today will be the former light heavyweight title challenger Anthony "Rumble" Johnson. He nearly realized UFC gold last year, and a win tomorrow will place him right back at the top of the list of contenders. And the same can be said for that man, Ryan Bader. Winner of 5 in a row, Bader has once again surfaced on the championship radar. A victory tomorrow will give him the biggest win of his career and an inside track on a title shot. High stakes as well in the co-main event. Veteran heavyweights Josh Barnett and Ben Rothwell throw down in what promises to be an exciting affair for as long as it lasts. The FS1 UFC Fight Night weigh-in show starts right now. Hello folks, thank you for being with us. As always, welcome inside the home of the NHL's New Jersey Devils. Not warm in here, but good to be here nonetheless. Jon Anik joined by the usual Big Fox Fight Squad, former WEC champion, former Navy football player, Captain Brian Stan. Next to him, the hunted, reigning, defending UFC light heavyweight champion Daniel Cormier. And of course, our UFC insider is Ariel Helwani. All right, DC, we'll start with you here. You and John Jones eventually going to throw down for the title, but the next contender likely going to emerge from this main event between Anthony Johnson and Ryan Bader.
Yes, this is a huge fight with huge title implications. Anthony "Rumble" Johnson has been there before. He fought for the belt against me just in May. He had some success in that fight. He had his moments, but he made mistakes that ultimately cost him. But by coming back and knocking out Jimmy Manuwa, making a statement, he puts himself right back where he wants to be, on the cusp of another title shot. And if he can make another statement tomorrow, there will be no denying Rumble Johnson.
Well, you know, you talk about consistency, you've got to bring up Ryan Bader, a guy with 5 wins in a row. If you're top 15 and win 5 in a row in most weight classes, you're fighting for the title. But nope, Ryan Bader's got to go through one more guy. And he's put 5 wins together in a row for a reason. He's refined every single skill. He's no longer just a wrestler with a powerful right hand. He's a very talented striker with good footwork, good defensive skills, and he's integrating that excellent Division I wrestling with all of those striking skills, and he's doing it better than he's ever done before. Truly a complete and integrated mixed martial artist now.
All right, co-main event tomorrow night between the former UFC champion Josh Barnett, number 7 Ben Rothwell. Ariel, what exactly is at stake here?
Well, John, I got to be honest, I think the stakes have been raised going into this fight. You know, Cain Velasquez's back injury has really changed the landscape. I'd be surprised if he got a title shot upon his return. So now, that just makes this fight that much more important. I know Stipe Miocic wants a shot at Verdum, and he certainly has a case, but I think the winner of this fight could seriously argue against Stipe Miocic for being the #1 contender, so it's a very important fight in the heavyweight division.
All right, we shall see, but for now, the fighters are ready to go. We send it downstairs. Here's Joe Rogan.
What's up? Welcome to weigh-ins, my friends. What's going on? There's not that many people. How about some energy, folks? Brittany, Vanessa, Chrissy, Ariani, Joe Silva, ladies and gentlemen. All right, let's get this started. We're gonna kick things off. The prelim start in the lightweight division. Tony Martin versus Felipe Olivieri.
So debuting, Felipe Olivieri is a Nova União product and very similar fighting style to his teammate Renan Barão. Very aggressive fighter, not the kind of guy to sit back and play a tempo or a pace style of fight. When you look at his career, he's at all finishes. Since his first victory, that's the only victory that was won by decision. Every victory since has been a finish. So look for this guy to get started fast and be aggressive throughout this fight with Tony Martin.
And look at you rolling that R Brazil style. You've been practicing.
Well, we've been there plenty of times the last 2 years, buddy.
The one person you don't want to mispronounce the name in front of is Jon Anik.
Pronunciation police out in full force as usual. Felipe Olivieri about to hit the scale here in advance of his UFC debut.
And guys, you see Nova União headman Andre Pederneiros with him. He was going to retire, but has thought against that, and he's still very much a big influence for his fighters.
155. And opponent, Tony Martin.
Tony Martin feels that in his 4th fight in the UFC, we'll finally get to see him at full potential. He got a full camp down in Boston with Mark Delagrade and his crew. In the Martin family, these people are extremely motivated. As Tony is trying to become one of the best fighters in the lightweight division, his wife is pursuing a double master's degree at Boston University.
Wow.
155 for Mr. Martin. First fight of the night,
look
ladies
at that.
and gentlemen, Tony Martin and Philippe Olivieri.
No love lost.
Dana White's been lifting some weights lately. He's getting a little better at those
Next fight
separations.
takes place in the featherweight division. Damon Jackson versus Ivan Makashvili.
There you see Makashvili, the first Georgian-born fighter to compete inside the octagon. Now, Brian, I know you live in the great state of Georgia, but I'm not talking about the state of Georgia. First Georgian-born fighter to fight in the UFC. Now resides in Oceanside, Queens, New York. So very much a local fighter. Always game, a former Georgia national MMA champion, a former Cage Fury Fighting Championship featherweight champion. Took his UFC debut on 2 weeks' notice and never materialized last year against Nick Lentz, and then won his first UFC fight on just 10 days' notice.
Now, he's a legit prospect, too. He's got some skills.
145.
Tough as nails. Ivan Makashvili.
And his opponent, Damon Jackson.
Jackson coming in on pretty short notice for this fight as well. You know, he talked about his training. This kid has not had an easy road. You know, had to debut against Yancy Medeiros on short notice, then his last fight against Hani Jason, and now Ivan Makashvili. All tough challenges. The biggest focus for Damon Jackson coming into this fight, though, no longer training for specific game plans. He really feels like that's hurt him in previous performances. Just focus on being better and capitalizing on what the guy gives him at that moment in the octagon.
145 for Mr. Jackson. Ivan Makashvili versus Damon Jackson, ladies and gentlemen. The next fight takes place in the welterweight division. Matt Dwyer versus Randy Brown.
Tremendous story here, guys. We all know about Sage Northcutt, who was found by Dana White on the pilot episode of Looking for a Fight. Well, Randy Brown is the second fighter that Dana and his crew have found off that show. That came after the first episode of Looking for a Fight. Local fighter, you see him representing Jamaica. In fact, he lives here, I should say across the river in the great state of New York. Won in November. Dana and his crew were there, and he's undefeated. I got a chance to talk to him yesterday. It's amazing how calm, cool, and collected he is. The first MMA fight he ever saw was UFC 80. That was BJ Penn versus Joe Stevenson. Saw that fight and said, I want to be an MMA fighter. Really started to focus on martial arts. He won the Ring of Combat welterweight title almost exactly a year ago. UFC 80, by the way, almost exactly 8 years ago. Now here he is about to make his UFC debut tomorrow in front of a lot of friends and family, guys.
171 for Mr. Brown.
By the way, guys, he has never seen the third round. Always finishes in either the first or second.
I'm going to piggyback off what Ariel said. Brown is the second guy found on Dana's show. So this presents Dwyer with a huge opportunity. Eyes are going to be on Brown to see what he can do, as Sage Northcutt has been so successful. Matt Dwyer is a guy that brings it. All 8 of his wins have come by knockout. He's won 6 of those in the very first round. He's a game fighter. He's got some experience. He's going to be a huge step up for Brown, and he has a huge opportunity in front of him tomorrow to take his momentum from the show.
169 for Mr. Dwyer.
And these guys are massive for 170 pounds.
Yeah.
Both of these guys.
Brown and Matt Dwyer, ladies and gentlemen. All those fights will be available on UFC Fight Pass.
All right, welcome back live to the Fox Sports Desk. You can catch the next 6 fights tomorrow right here on FS1, the exclusive home of the UFC, starting with featherweights Alex Caceres and Macio Fullen. Brian, the Ultimate Fighter Latin American contestant Fullen, will hit the scale first.
And you know, it's always interesting when these guys come off the show, where do they go train? How much do they grow? You know, he has moved on and he's training at Alliance MMA and really trained a lot with Dominic Cruz while Dominic Cruz is preparing for TJ Dillashaw. So expect to see improved footwork. Expect to see a lot of improvements really when guys come off the show. You know, previously training in a place in Tijuana where there's just not a whole lot of wrestling. There's not a lot of new knowledge coming into him.
You know, he was on Team Velasquez on the show, and he was a guy that had a lot of bravado, a guy that believed in his fighting style, and he showed it in his UFC debut.
You know, interesting to note, you know, he's dedicating this fight to his father who passed away recently. So a heavy heart, but a lot of motivation for Macio Fullen coming in this fight.
145 for Mr. Fullen. And his opponent, Alex Caceres.
In the 2 opportunities that I've had to help on the Ultimate Fighter, I got to coach Caceres and I got to coach Macio. Alex Caceres is a guy that is very eccentric, but when he gets into the octagon and he's on his game, he competes with the best in the world, beating Sergio Pettis, earning a shot against Uriah Faber. He said that when he was 14 years old, he wanted to do martial arts, but they didn't have enough money to afford to pay for the training. So he started wrestling first because it was free. Great to have a wrestling base to start, but he's got phenomenal striking.
145 for Bruce Leroy.
He's got phenomenal striking, and he's very aggressive at attacking submissions when you make a mistake.
Ladies and gentlemen, Alex Caceres and Macio Fullen.
That's a lot of hair.
The next fight takes place in the welterweight division. George Sullivan versus Alexander Yakovlev.
There you see Yakovlev, who actually trains here in the Garden State. You know, it's interesting, John, I believe you called his last fight against Gray Maynard. Nice win for him. I believe, Brian, you were there as well. Now, that fight happened at 155, found success, picked up a win. Now, here he is moving up to 170, which I found to be very interesting. You know, sign of the times, perhaps, with the IV ban in place for these fighters, but I was surprised that he didn't stick around at 155.
Yeah, I think 170 fits his frame a lot better, in all honesty, than 155 pounds. He looked very thin, frail, didn't have the same kind of pop on his punches.
He is also a professional rapper, so
of course, he has released
Google his name after the weigh-in show.
Alexander Yakovlev. 171.
I gotta tell you, in his rap videos too, I mean, quite the car collection.
And his opponent, George Sullivan.
You hear the crowd get a little louder for George Sullivan. This is the second time that he's fought in Newark. The first time he fought Tim Means. He's from Red Bank, New Jersey, which is only 39 miles away from here, and he says that he wants to give his family and friends a night to remember this time. It didn't go as well as he planned to last time. He wants to reward these people for driving 45 minutes up the road and watching them fight in the Prudential Center.
171 for Mr. Sullivan.
That's not all that bad. You know, having family and friends drive 45 minutes to watch you lose, you know, I've had my family and friends had to pull out a passport before and watch me lose.
That's what happened the first time. You know, he said he wants to show him this time.
It gets worse, George. Trust me.
George.
A product of Pellegrino MMA. Kurt Pellegrino, former UFC fighter, has had a nice run thus far. 3-1 in the UFC, coming off a win over Dominic Waters.
Alexander Yakovlev and George Sullivan, ladies and gentlemen.
And just the stare down there gives you a sense of the size of Yakovlev. That's a big guy.
Division, Dustin Ortiz versus Wilson Hayes.
Well, we were talking about Fullen being a product now of Alliance MMA, that great gym headed by Eric Del Fiero. You know, Wilson Hayes was around the sport a long time, but he says that once he got to Alliance in Chula Vista, California, it really put everything together for him. He really credits Dominic Cruz for helping him go on a run at 125 pounds. Dropped down to 125, had a lot of success, stumbled in his last fight, but still feels like, you know, if he gets 1 or 2 more wins, he's right back in there. And I think he's right. I think in this division, especially with his style, you get 1 or 2 wins, you can very much be in that title picture.
126. 126 for Mr. Hayes.
The first and only Elite XC Bantamweight champion, Wilson Hayes. Long live Elite XC.
Fought at the first MMA show I ever attended back in 2007.
Appears as though we're having some scale issues. Joe Rogan's on top of it. Joe Rogan, a product of Newark.
And his opponent, Dustin Ortiz.
Ortiz comes in the number 9 flyweight in the world. You know, it's interesting, when you look at his record, when you look at his career, he's had 14 fights go into the 3rd round. So some people obviously want to classify him as more of a grinder. However, you know, he's had 5 finishes in the 3rd round. Hard to find guys that finish you late in the fight. Ortiz's style, when you look at it, it's much more of a war of attrition. He breaks guys down, puts a lot of pressure on them, and then because of that pressure, they get desperate in the 3rd round. They create openings, and Ortiz is there to capitalize on them. I think we're seeing him now where he's really the most motivated he's ever been in his career. He's had a taste of some of the elite guys in this weight class. He knows what he needs to add to his game. We'll find out if it materializes tomorrow night.
125 from Mr. Ortiz.
I love this fight. I don't know about you guys. I think it's a great fight at 125.
Stylistically, a very fun matchup.
Dustin Ortiz and Wilson Hayes. The next fight takes place in the middleweight division. NATAL versus Kevin Casey.
Kevin Casey is a big middleweight, and he has a history of having hard weight cuts. He's one of the guys that the IV ban, after USADA's been implemented, really does affect. So prior to his last fight, which actually only lasted 11 seconds because he got poked in the eye really bad, he filed for a therapeutic use exemption on 2 different occasions, was denied both times. So during this fight camp, he said he really focused on trying to get his weight lower so that he could train at the weight that he wants to fight. He also said that he has to work on his head movement so that getting poked in the eye doesn't happen again, because he's always trying to forward pressure his opponents.
Yeah, torn retina in that fight against Antonio Carlos Jr.
185.25 for Mr. Casey.
I'm surprised he's back so soon.
Yes, and
it's a very quick turnaround.
And honestly, if you look at him, he doesn't look drawn out, so he really did a good job of getting his weight down.
Yeah, well, his opponent, Rafael Natal, finally cracked the top 15 in the middleweight division, but not necessarily how you want it to crack, right? A guy gets removed and he happens to bump himself in. It just happened recently, but he's quietly been on a very good run, and he's known as a world-class jiu-jitsu practitioner, but he's getting it done against difficult matchups. Guys like Uriah Hall, Chris Camozzi, Tom Watson. So these guys both come from 2 very prestigious jiu-jitsu backgrounds, but I have a feeling tomorrow night we're probably going to see more of a striking battle. Both decent takedown defense. Neither guy has really overwhelming wrestling, but look for the volume and a little bit of the unpredictability in Natal's striking to potentially give him an advantage in this matchup.
Yeah, Natal, a Renzo Gracie black belt. Kevin Casey, a Rickson Gracie black belt.
185 for Mr. Natal.
Rickson Gracie is the older brother of Royce Gracie, excuse me, Renzo Gracie, so you have a bit of a sibling rivalry here.
Yeah, a little bit, yeah.
I like that.
Natal's done a lot of work with Mark Henry, and I think, we've not seen him on stage, but I think he's been very much responsible for some of his recent success.
Ladies and gentlemen. The next fight takes place in the lightweight division. Olivier "Albo" Mercier versus DWYER.
When DWYER debuted in the UFC, it was not easy. He got to fight Colton Smith, the Ultimate Fighter winner. What did he do? He went out there and choked him out in 38 seconds. Then they gave him Ramsey Najim, another Ultimate Fighter finalist. What did he do? Knocked him out, finished him in 2 minutes of the 2nd round. This guy looked like a world beater in his first 2 fights. He's kind of run into a little bit of adversity against Dustin Poirier. and against Beneil Dariush, but you see the level of competition that this young man has fought early in his UFC career. He can get it back on track this weekend if he gets the job done against another prospect in Aubin Mercier. This guy has fought some of the best young fighters the UFC has to offer, and every time he's willing to step up because he has a ton of skill to match his confidence.
And right away, they're bringing the towel out. We'll see if Diego Ferreira can make weight on the first attempt.
Yeah, he better hope so, because this place is cold. There's no way he's shedding it if he can't make it now.
First up on the scale, Diego Ferreira.
He made the weight. You can see that he was very concerned about it. But again, he has the style that lends itself to fighting Aubin Mercier because he's so good in the jiu-jitsu and the grappling. You know Mercier likes to score the takedowns.
Certainly, but Ferreira cannot be comfortable on his back with a guy like Mercier, because Mercier has a suffocating top game.
And his opponent, Olivier Mercier.
The pride of Boucherville, Quebec, Olivier Aubin Mercier, one of the best fighters coming out of Canada. And I'm pretty hard on my home country. I don't think Canada has been producing a lot of great fighters.
Do you live there, Aaron?
No, not anymore. Where I was born. But Olivier Aubin Mercier, who is a product of both H2O MMA, let's not forget about them, and TriStar, is one to watch. He's won his last 3 in a row. And here's the thing, guys. He always does something kind of unique at the weigh-ins. Gives cookies, little gifts sometimes. He says he has something very special planned for today, so I'm curious to see what he's got in store.
And I think a lot of people would say, other than Rory McDonald, you might be looking right now at Canada's best hope for UFC glory. Big one for him tomorrow night.
155.
All right, let's see what OAM has in store for us.
Excellent athlete, lots of character, lots of personality on this guy too. He's gonna be a lot of fun.
Trains with George St. Pierre, who was his idol growing up, and says he's still very much in awe of the fact that he gets to work out with this man. Taking his time, he's building suspense here. What do we got?
And OAM also undefeated in the weight class, by the way. Only setback for him in his pro career came up a division against Chad Laprise.
What do we have? What is that?
Maple syrup.
Maple syrup. Which,
Diego Ferreira and Olivier Mercier.
can I just say, Diego wasn't very
no,
that was not gracious enough. I'll tell you what.
A smile would be nice,
That's the best
Diego.
maple syrup money can buy right
The
there.
next fight takes place in the welterweight division. Tarek Safadine versus Jake Ellenberger.
All right, third time is a charm. This fight has been booked and then booked over and over again, and there's always been reasons why it can't happen. Now, Jake Ellenberger's been a guy who's struggled with consistency. He's gym hopped quite a bit, but now with the birth of his son Jamison, he really believes that having something to fight for, having a lot more long-term goals is going to bring the best out of him and bring forth the consistency I think that we've all been waiting to see out of this athlete.
First up on the scale, Jake Ellenberger. 170 for
This is the one guy that's always had the physical ability, and when the mental matches, Jake Ellenberger can be a difficult out for anyone in this division.
Welcome back, former Strikeforce welterweight champion Tarek Safadine. Wow, it has been a while since we saw this man inside the octagon. October 4th, 2014 to be exact. He has recently left Team Quest, which he was a part of for 8 years. He now trains at the TriStar Gym, which is interesting because his last loss was to Rory McDonald. Now trains alongside Rory McDonald. I used to check in with Tarek Safadine almost every 2-3 weeks prior to UFC Tonight when I was gathering my nuggets. Hey man, when are you coming back? When are you coming back? Dealing with a horrible groin injury that just wouldn't get better. Finally, he's 100%. So happy to see him back fighting.
169 and 3/4 for Mr. Safadine.
I love the fit for him at TriStar. I think it's a great, and let's not forget, I mean, he's from Belgium. So comfortable around the French atmosphere. I think it's a great fit for him.
And And really a guy who can make a difference in this division now that he's healthy. Hello again, folks. So, and then there were 8. The next 4 matchups will be seen tomorrow on Big Fox at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, beginning with a welterweight scrap between the blue chip prospect Super Sage Northcutt and Brian Barberina. Brian Stan, the late replacement Barberina, will weigh in first.
Yeah, the MMA lab student, I'll tell you, this kid is a tough guy. You know, I like the fact that they've agreed to make this fight at 170 pounds. Vice student at 155. I think we've done a lot of things that we're getting smarter in terms of the weight cut, in terms of the IV ban. I think all the athletes have responded better, and they're doing it more professional and safer. And this is just going to be a better performance by both guys. But don't sleep on this kid. This kid is tough. A lot of people are counting him out just because of the height of Sage Northcutt. His last fight, he was losing in round 1 against Chad Lepre. Really starting to come back and rebound late in the fight.
170. And his opponent, Sage Northcutt.
You want to talk about blue chip, John Addick? This is the kid that sits in the gymnasium with the whole school watching what school he's going to pick. Sage Northcutt is as blue chip as it gets. He found him on looking for a fight. But since he's coming to the UFC, he's been nothing short of fabulous. Sage Northcutt, the guy that always talks about how nice you are. It's almost like the kid was born in the 60s and lives as though he was on the Andy Griffith show. But the other day, he showed a little attitude. He said, "You worried about my fight pay?
170 for Mr.
You're worried about my fight pay?
Wow.
Well, bring something to the table, and the UFC will pay you accordingly." Sage Northcutt showing a little bit of something different, and I think that helps, and that's good for him.
And as you can see, he is not all about that cake and chicken, right?
Next, we move to the bantamweight division. Yuri Alcantara versus Jimmy Rivera.
Another local guy fighting tomorrow night, Ramsey, New Jersey's own Jimmy Rivera, 18-1. He has won 17 fights in a row, and you can hear some of the crowd cheering for him, or maybe they were cheering for Sage Northcutt there, stealing all the applause. But Jimmy Rivera is a tremendous prospect. Brian, I know you in particular are very high on this man. Product of Tiger Schulman's, now lives in Brooklyn, but former Cage Fury Fighting Championship bantamweight champion, former Ring of Combat bantamweight champion. I am very excited to watch him fight in his 3rd UFC fight tomorrow.
Yeah, it took his time getting here. His game has been an evolution, but now he's really firing on all cylinders, and he came to the UFC when he was ready to fight anybody. Very often we see guys just come to the UFC when they're maybe ready to be here, but not beat the best. This kid came, he's ready to take on anybody.
135.
You may remember he fought Dennis Bermudez on season 14 of The Ultimate Fighter.
Yuri Alcantara.
There's so much can change in the world of mixed martial arts. It's incredible. How many people remember when Yuri Alcantara made his debut in the WEC and knocked out Ricardo Lamas in the 1st round? Now you look at it, Alcantara has dropped down to 135 pounds. He's ranked number 14. Ricardo Lamas, however, stayed at 145, ranked at number 5 in the world, has fought for the title before. 2 very different paths. So much can change in a short amount of time in this sport.
Alcantara's had a lot of difficult matchups, perhaps this one more favorable. Jimmy Rivera might be willing, to stand and trade with him. So good fight here. Feature bout on the main card tomorrow night. You can see it on Fox.
Yeah, Alcantara had a lot of momentum going until he dropped that fight to Frankie Saenz. He was the biggest favorite on the card, too, and Frankie Saenz just really fought the perfect fight against him. But he looked fabulous returning when he took on Leandro Issa in his last fight. Really put everything together well against a tough matchup stylistically in Leonardo Issa.
135 and a quarter for Mr. Alcantara.
32 pro wins for the Brazilian. 19 of those wins have come in the 1st round. This guy's a finisher. Great feature on him on Road to the Octagon. Really like that.
Jimmy Rivera and Yuri Alcantara, ladies and gentlemen.
Hello.
The next fight takes place in the heavyweight division. Josh Barnett versus Ben Rothwell.
Now you folks at home can't see this, but DC is actually doing the Rothwell jig right up here on the stage right now.
That's the name of it.
There are a lot of great characters on this card, perhaps none better than Big Ben Rothwell. You know, it's funny, around 7 or 8 years ago, he actually fought in New Jersey. That was the last time he fought here. He won in less than 15 seconds via knockout against Krzysztof Soszyński. He is back, and he is streaking, and he wants a title shot. Do not make this man mad, John. You know that. Don't ask a follow-up to Big Ben.
265 for Big Ben.
Right at the limit. Right at the heavyweight limit.
And his opponent, the former UFC heavyweight champion of the world, Josh Barnett.
A lot of times the guy has a long career and they don't get better towards the end of it. I am going to say, in Josh Barnett's last fight, I don't think he's ever looked better than he did against Roy Nelson. A lot of times we try to figure out Josh Barnett. I think Josh did it for us in his biography. When they ask guys, what does it mean to fight in the UFC? Everybody's talking about it's a dream. I'm so happy. Josh said, this is a return to a conquered kingdom, to once again and finally put the octagon under the reign of my iron fist. That is Josh Barnett in a statement. He's a ruler, a conqueror, and he wants to conquer Ben Rothwell tomorrow night.
Yeah, there's a whole lot of weird on the stage right now with these two guys.
I love it. A svelte Josh Barnett. Looks great once again.
Yeah, he does. He does. Wow, that's about as light as I've seen him in a long time.
He looked very good against Roy Nelson as well in Japan.
His speed was a real key for him against Roy Nelson.
And
I think it's the biggest attribute he has coming in this fight too. Is going to be hand speed, diversity of strikes.
You talk about a people's main event. All right, guys, I am out. Good rest of the show. I'll be talking to those guys backstage.
And Josh Barnett. Now let's take a closer look at the two men involved in the main event of the evening. Anthony Rumble Johnson versus Ryan Bader is a fight between the two top contenders in the UFC's talent-stacked light heavyweight division. Ryan Bader has never looked better.
Oh, big nice elbow.
I love competing. There's something that I maybe have to prove to myself. I want to go out there and prove to everybody that I go 5 rounds hard and get the win, you know, because that's championship material.
I really want to fight Ryan Bader. He feels he deserves the next title shot, but in my opinion, he hasn't beat anybody in the top 3 yet, so I definitely want to test him and see if he's ready.
For Anthony Rumble Johnson, the recipe for success is very simple. Step forward, throw bombs. In the Jimmy Manuwa fight, he put Manuwa away early and let everybody in the light heavyweight division know that he is still the most dangerous knockout artist in the world at 205 pounds.
I'm eager to get back out there and do what I need to do. Hopefully I can get back to the title.
He better be in shape because I'm coming hard the whole time. And I'm going to use my footwork. I'm going to use my speed. I'm going to use everything that's gotten me to this point in this game, and I'm going to put it all together.
Just me knowing that he's gonna bring it all makes me focus more, makes me want to do 10 times as much as he's doing.
I'm gonna drag him into deep water and finish him.
Well, I'm definitely gonna try and keep it standing. I know Bader's gonna try and take me down.
I'm gonna come in with a good game plan and do whatever it takes to get my hand raised.
I understand where he's coming from as far as getting a title shot, but I work my ass off too, and I'm gonna keep pushing myself until I become a champion.
Here we go, ladies and gentlemen. Introducing the former winner of the Ultimate Fighter, Ryan Bader!
Tell you what, there's a lot of great athletic attributes for Ryan Bader, but let me add one other thing, and this falls more under character. Ryan Bader has donated over $80,000 to charity over the course of his UFC career. I believe that has to be a record. I've not heard of anybody doing better than that. Says a lot about what kind of man he is.
205 from Mr. Bader! And his opponent, Anthony Rumble Johnson.
As if on cue, when I see Rumble Johnson, I want to say that's a bad bad man right there. Rumble Johnson, a guy that can punch so hard it transcends weight classes. He knocked me halfway across the octagon. He knocked Andrei Arlovsky across the octagon. That's a heavyweight. I'm a light heavyweight. In the last fight against Manuato, he showed some wrinkles to his game using his wrestling that he went to college to wrestle. Guys weighing in with his pants on right now. Rumble showing that making weight is not an issue. He feels like this is the fight that puts him right back into title talk. If he can make a statement against Ryan Bader tomorrow night, this is a big task. As we get closer, more people are shifting in Ryan Bader's direction.